Greetings and welcome to the Saroth the Mage Experiment. Tonight I have a good friend, brilliant artist, master of all trades, Keats Ross. How are you doing, Keats?
Good, buddy. Thank you for having me. You were one of the few people that I will talk to anymore. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. We were just talking earlier about how I don't think we've done a bunch of streams and like
Yeah,
sub shows with the magic and recovery stuff, but I
yeah,
don't think it's just been one on one with us since I
no,
had you on.
yeah,
Um,
and that was like
Prag
3 years
Magic.
ago, so
Yeah.
well overdue. So I
No.
thought now would be a good time to interview you because you've got this new project going called the Haunt Manual.
Hmm. Yeah.
Excellent. I listened to the first. It's about a 30-minute chapter. Is that the whole first chapter that you've posted?
Yeah. I think bare written, it was 8 or 9 pages, maybe 10. So spoken, with the audiomancy and everything, it ended up just being 30 some odd minutes long. Yeah.
Yeah. And have you got the rest of it written already, or is it
No,
about?
so the thing is that it's a fluid. I think I was kind of lost in a prism. I'm a writer and I've written a lot of things, but have always been very, I don't know, sanctimonious about publishing. And I think it's because of how I configured the idea of publishing, of needing to, quietly work on this work and then, go through all of the editing processes and then release it. And I thought, I don't know, I like the combustible nature, like the open-endedness of releasing each chapter as I'm actually kind of
Yeah.
finishing it and doing multimedia with it. So that's the project. I don't know when it'll end. Um, I'm already hard at work on the second chapter, which should be out next month. And yeah, it's just a fluid multimedia experiment. And I think that
Multimedia magical journal, really.
yeah, call it multimedia grimoire because it really is. It's not only does it deal with a lot of the intonations of the self for me, but it's also kind of an analysis of things that inspire me and processes and things that I'm learning now as well as kind of documenting what I've learned in the past. So it's just kind of, yeah, just fluid tundra through everything that came before for something new, which is a big theme of it, is creating that third mind between what was and what will be,
Yeah.
or what is
Well, that
now.
that was
Yeah.
interesting to me because in the Burroughs Gysin sense, the third mind was with two people and together they make a third mind. But with you, it's like Keats Ross and Dakota Slim, Keats
Right.
Ross and Prague Magic. So the third mind is actually coming from your somewhat split personality.
Yeah, and it goes through all of that, and I'll talk about that more ad nauseum as I do it, but I'm finding that within pretty much everything, just the micro and the macro of that third, of contradiction, of needing to find that third mind between two opposing views, um, between aesthetics, even with music, working with both analog and digital and finding a new pathway forward with those. It's, the third mind is like this constants I see in um, the small aspects and also the like big broader themes. So yeah, three. And what's funny is I actually there's a background working within the chapters, and I've written it down so it's easier for me to kind of construct these chapters moving forward. And it's of not three acts, but like three parts of each chapter. And the first two are kind of a dialogue between myself, between the processes and like the inspiration. And the third is like what this means, you know.
Yeah.
So it gets maddening intrinsic, but it's also it's
You
also
love it. You
yeah,
love it. You're a slave to your art. Uh,
yes, yeah.
so, could you talk us through your artistic process a little bit? Um, and any tie-ins to occultism.
Yeah, so I've been loud about my kind of artistic process and my metaphysical musings for many years now. Since actually 5 years ago is when I was out. 5 years ago this week, it would have been. I did a large magical working, a very anarchic, chaos riddled working under the totality of the um, eclipse in August of
That
2017
was the
in
one in the
Oregon.
desert.
And this was in Oregon, and we were
Okay.
in the view, and I camped out and I meditated and I composed this huge ritual, and I said, I'm going full throttle with magic. Here's everything I know. Prior to that, magical practices have helped me not only inspire and enhance creativity, but have helped me mentally, have helped me get through addiction issues in the past, have helped me. So I kind of, this big working 5 years ago was giving myself up to the study of it and understanding myself more. And it's been this very fluid process of kind of becoming, but also giving reverence to what was. And it was also, like I said, really shoot from the hip, maddening. It was, I basically, knowing what I know now, I would not have performed the ritual as I did
Yeah, I
or
think I've.
included aspects, but
Yeah,
it was very much a Dharma bum, burn everything down, start anew sort of thing. And here I am, 5 years later.
the lightning struck tower. It's one of the
Yeah.
first references in your. Do you want to play like 2 or 3 minutes of your neither, either, or now?
Yeah, this will probably just be a random excerpt.
Yeah, no worries.
Funny
Just so
enough, I
people get a taste of it.
clicked on the 23 minute, which is funny. But yeah, just a random excerpt here. Can't speak. Well, yeah. The art would be formless to the purveyor, available to be interpreted in any direction, and free from the academic understanding of the purity of the artist's intentions. Malevich writes, "Our world of art has become new, non-objective, pure." Malevich's scoff at individual creation requiring academic absolutes or any objective hierarchical understanding is as freeing as it is maddening. If all artists could see the crossroads of these celestial paths, then they would not paint chrysanthemums. Which brings me to my need for such a contradictory way of expression. Why are so many magicians, artists, creators so subject to personify the currents and influences that stain them? But I am not here to balk at painting platitudes or iambic pentameter poetry writing, or hell, even devout Thelemites. No, my purpose is to name my haunted source of contradiction beyond that of the aesthetic, the enjoyment of a supreme creativity that is largely unfettered by the social conditioning of the mediums we creating, whilst adhering to communal spaces and positive accompaniment of others' unique paths. It is utilitarian to be both the freed mind and the harmonious actor.
What are these images we're
The
watching, Keith?
utilitarianism of the individuation Yeah, so these were it's an old public domain 70s film about the cosmos and space, and I just manipulated the hell out of them. Also part and parcel to the project itself, which is kind of taking influences and ripping them apart to find something new, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah.
You name four artists or thinkers in your piece.
Yes, yeah.
John Frusciante from the
Oh,
Red Hot Chili
Frusciante,
Peppers.
yeah, which was a relatively new one. So I tried to add ones that inspired me in the past, and then kind of new ones that I'm finding still,
Yeah,
hit at those pieces. And he
beautiful.
was a kind of a totemic realization of the really deep struggles of like addiction and abandon, but also kind of managing to be one of the most popular bands in the world and create this haunting, beautiful, absolutely, uh, you know, s- just incredible talismanic work
Yeah,
while doing all of that. So,
I agree.
yeah.
And the others, I don't think I'd heard of. Malevich, I'd never heard of.
Yeah, Kazimir Malevich was actually another new one, and it was funny. I was talking to Sam Shadow. I don't know why. Um,
Love to Sam, by the way.
yeah, big love to Sam. I don't know how I stumbled onto him. It's just one of those things recently. I think when I had this break before, when I was kind of constructing this work, he was one of the things that pulled me out of kind of always worrying about what to excise or like what to fix about myself, and kind of giving, myself credit for the person I became or who I am now. And he's one of the ones that kind of inspired me. I was like, holy shit, instead of thinking about all of the things that I need to fix or I need to get rid of, like I should be really focusing on uh these wonderful, inspirations, and talking about that and speaking on that. And he wrote 1915, he wrote a manifesto. He was kind of part of the Cubist movement, and then he deconstructed that and created something called suprematism. And he was a Russian painter who was actually jailed because of his manifesto. um, and his manifesto was just that. It was all about giving the intention back to the artist, like fuck this academic understanding of art. um, you know Eat that quote of, if all artists saw these celestial pathways, they wouldn't paint chrysanthemums. You
Yeah,
know?
that's
and
a
um,
beautiful line. Yeah.
and I found out later, and just by, some sort of synchronicity, that we share the same birthday. And so that
Oh,
was like a very kind of intrinsically haunting thing, right?
well,
So,
that's a synchronicity right there. I
yeah.
did. We talked about this a wee bit before we came on the show, but when I listen, I mean, I've listened to it many times now, but one of the major feelings I get from the first chapter is the first chapter, isn't it? Yeah, it is.
Yes.
It is nostalgia,
Mhm.
and nostalgia is such a. I think William Burroughs used nostalgia a lot, and it's kind of it's like the future, although the future hasn't happened yet.
Right.
It's not here, you know, but
Mhm.
you remember it. And my nostalgia is, good times and bad times.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
for, yeah,
To be completely honest, I ran from nostalgia. I always hated it. I'm a sentimental person, but I hated nostalgia. I wanted to move so hard away from the past to be here now. Or, I was honestly so present a lot of the times that I would get trapped in not kind of giving reverence to the past, or like understanding why and where, or how I've created this prism of self that I'm in. And, reading the works of like Jacques Derrida, and hauntology, and like, which is more of like a cultural thing about
mm,
nostalgia. I started to implement the idea in a self, what I call like a hauntological self kind of practice. And nostalgiamancy is this that idea, that I come up with because it really is about, people have come to me and told me, oh, it reminds them of so and so's work about changing the past, or and that, and I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested
no,
in
I
going
didn't
back
really
and
get
fixing
that.
anything. yeah, I'm interested in giving it reverence and actually like taking maybe there is like a bravery of, through addiction and hard times. There are these components um of stuff that I need to sit with and kind of work and mutate through that I was just wholly pushing past. So it really is this you know this metaphysical process to kind of burrow into that nostalgia, but also to not to change it, to give it reverence and to create something new from it. And it's also a self-referential kind of way to, this first chapter was about a lot of the things that inspired me when I was a kid. I've been going under the music of Dakota Slim since I was 14.
I had
Um,
no idea you'd been Dakota Slim that long.
Yeah, then it's become this like egregore servitor that I kind of just have to commune with now. I have like very little control over it, and I've been trying to kill him for many years, and we're just not done yet, and that comes with a big um, creative working that I've been working on forever. But I know in my heart when that's out and that's done that Dakota Slim will be no more, and I think that's what's kept me from killing it. And I was wondering why, like what is there more left to do with it? And so going back to the genesis of how these things started and how all of these, artistic practices and artistic aliases and all of this, like where does that come from? Help me gain that inspiration again of like being there and remembering like just as something as simple as a beach blanket bingo movie when I was 14, just as something as simple as something being so macabre and such a bubbly film, like inspired me to create, this whole thing. So yeah, it's this nostalgia is it does come with a cost, and I think I'm ready for it. And I think that's a lot of what the magical workings are within it is kind of being able to sit with it and sit with the trauma and maybe like the inherent sadness of those times, right? And
Yeah.
where I was and why I didn't want to look behind for so long. So,
Yeah, well, I
yeah.
totally understand that. You, you talk about the need for creativity, and I've experienced exactly the same thing. I began to access through smoking dope, uh, drugs, and I thought if I give up drugs, I'm not going to be creative anymore.
Mm.
Did you have a similar idea?
No, was never really about that because I was always, you know, really creative as far as like producing. I was when I did Dakota Slim at 14, that was around the days of mp3.com. And so I was like putting albums out at 14 because it was the internet, like, blossoming internet, and you could upload songs and upload art and then pay to get CDs made. And so like I've always been doing that. Unfortunately, the drugs really did take hold later, and that was also what I'm understanding now was a kind of a lot of variables starting to schism, undiagnosed mental health issues, you know, bunch of trauma based things, but also, yeah, the kind of dependence on euphoria and serotonin and escapism. And uh, funny enough, I never took drugs to create art, actually. I think sometimes I'd hate creating art because it was just kind of too real for me during those times. And
Mhm.
that's why I had to kind of stop it. It was because I was, kind of less voicing that ghost when I was escaping so much from it. So yeah, that's different to maybe how you experienced it, but I totally see the validity in both.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
all on that Jim Morrison,
Mm.
Rambo, profound disordering of the senses trip,
Yeah, for
which
sure.
many have fallen for to their
Hmm.
dooms.
Yeah, I definitely found comfort in, the works of Burroughs and all of it gave me comfort knowing that there was that shared energy of
Yeah,
people in that very cataclysmic space during that time, because it is a huge tether, I think, of artists and this sort of escapism that, or abandon, I should say. It's a very romantic kind of uh, decree against nature and against, the fear of death. And,
yeah.
I still have that to a degree. So,
Well, in neither either or, you express that quite beautifully. There's a tension between knowing that you have to be a functional human being, make money, and then the artist
yeah.
who really, it's like Nietzsche's. I don't mean to be all what do you call it,
Yeah.
but
What is it?
Apollonian. I can't say that word. Say it for me, Keats.
What is it?
Apollonian,
Apollonian? Yeah.
Apollo an
Yeah.
and
Apollonian.
Dionysian. So you've
Yeah.
got your kind of
Yep.
straight thinking, rational man, and then you've got your wild, free, crazy self.
Wine and orgies. Yeah.
Yeah, I know which one I prefer.
Yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, I mean, if you put a gun to my head, Dionysian all the way. But yeah, I think it's more to do too is I use this word over and over again in it, this communion. And it's not only the communion of two halves of the self, but it's also a communion with those around you. And if I was freewheeling and didn't find myself kind of responsible for the things that, the feelings and the just the kind of partially responsible of the worlds of people around me, I think things would be much different. But I do have a need to not be so selfish, right? And to and it's a thing that I think a lot of people have to wrestle with. And for me, that's the kind of battle in between not only sharing time but also being kind and not harming yourself, for to not harm others, but not harming others to not harm yourself, sort of thing. So
Mhm.
it's a lesson I had to learn later. Um and yeah, it's something I think a lot of people struggle with too, because I think life inherently is just very selfish. And I'm
Yeah,
very into the, self flatulating, like, magical and artistic aspects. But I do need to find that communion with not disrupting the lives of those closest around me. So,
yeah. Well, I think you've done kind of the opposite. You've given a platform to many wonderful artists and people that might have not have come into public view. Could you tell us a wee bit about the We the Hallowed, your like art, music, uh,
yeah,
multimedia kind of thing?
I think shorthand we call it like an international collective, but really, and this is funny because it also shares that same like polarities of that communion, because um the only tether really that binds all of the creators and magicians within We the Hallowed is the need for metaphysical practices, or the interest in metaphysical practices to create art, right? So that's pretty much it. So everyone is so just indefinite about their individuality, and it's like undefinable and or indefinable, excuse me, but in the like it's different parts, but together it's kind of conjoined into this really beautiful um, publishing and music. We do video sigils and audio sigils. We all come together to kind of be piecemeal about this patchwork of really wonderful, disparate works of art and characters. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, I think another part of the Haunt Manual is it's kind of like a backdoor into figuring out the tethers of this collective as well, and finding the constants of what I term the constants, and these are like kind of inalienable, like, ideas that we all share despite our cultural differences or even our magical practices or whatever.
Mhm.
And that's really those are the tethers that bind, but everything else is just it's the old west out there, on
Yeah.
that side. It's, yeah,
Well,
everyone. I have, even though I am an editor, I don't editorialize other people's work. It's every word is theirs, every piece of art is theirs. I don't take We the Hollowed itself doesn't take any money from any of the artists. It's really just kind of like an engine to kind of connect and promote a bunch of anarchic magics. So
mhm.
yeah.
And there's also the what I did it first on my channel, and
Hmm.
then remember the Hauntwinox and the
Yes.
Saturday Sideshow.
Yeah.
I'm
So
hoping I'm
yeah,
hoping
that
that's
was.
going to be a
Oh, sorry.
annual event now.
Yes, me too. And it was your idea for the basically for the construction of this, and it started with the Saturday Sideshow, which was a total hoot and a very um, specific time capsule.
We were in
Mid
deep in
pandemic.
lockdown at that point.
Yeah, mid pandemic, we all came together. A lot of us, are still, kind of conjoined creatively, and then there's people that have just, kind of disappeared into the ether, as all things are. And Haunt Quinox was kind of a pony on that, but it was also a very We the Hollowed specific one. So it was anybody that had posted to We the Hollowed. We call them haunts. Anyone that was connected to We the Hollowed at all. Panel discussion. I made a video component to the audio sigil that we all made
Oh yeah,
music
the audio
for.
video as well was
And
fantastic.
yeah, and so yeah, Honquinox is kind of a very We the Hollowed yearly celebration, I would say, of all of that. And yeah, I really do hope it stays annual, and it will. It's a
Oh yeah.
lot easier now going through two of them, because that first one I wasn't really that Seder Sideshow I wasn't supposed to
Well,
host.
you stepped in at the last minute. I would have
Yeah,
been Scoobied if you hadn't stepped in, man, because
yeah.
I can barely operate Facebook.
Oh yeah, I know. Me too. Honestly, I'm really bad at Facebook, but so it was trial by fire, that first one, and we learned a lot, and we fixed all of the things that we learned from that first one. And it's just getting easier every year, and it really is just about what was great about the Honquinox too is that people submitted, such as yourself, things specific, like artistic pieces specific for that day
Oh yeah.
and for that festival. And that's kind of the genealogy of us working creatively together, with me doing the music and you doing your spoken word, which is not unlike the priest they called him, right? With
Oh
Cobain
yeah.
and Burroughs.
Yeah.
So that's how I always thought of it. And so speaking of which, we need to release those two tracks on the We the Hollowed Bandcamp, which we'll do in the next couple
Yes,
of weeks.
I'd be very happy to. I'm not quite satisfied with the vocals on Rise, but I can maybe do them again, or maybe you can soup them up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest would be if you wanted to do them again, just to send me just the vocal track, and then I can put it in with all the music and edit. But that's a whole tech discussion that's probably extremely boring for viewers. So
So let's get back to magic, which is what my channel's all about. Are you currently? I remember you used to do sigils on your arms all the
Mhm.
time. You still do that?
Yeah, funny enough, part of these, I know you can't really see the teal one, but part of these is coming up in the next chapter of the Haunt Manual, and what all of my tattoos are stick and pokes done by friends in different cities I've lived in throughout my life, and they're all sigils I designed and had them put them on me as kind of a magical act. And throughout my years of creating sigils, and it got macro with hyper sigils, and all my albums became sigils, and Haunt Manual itself is a sigil, but so are each chapter, and you know what I mean, like it gets
Mhm.
and kind of in the weeds with all of this you know very deep kind of magical intent, right, with every part and parcel. um I'm going to be talking about how, funny enough, these sigils that were tattooed on me were kind of retired that way, but I'm seeing their use again, like they're coming up again. And I forget, obviously, what the exact, you know, intent was with each sigil. I kind
Yeah,
of,
well,
have a loose idea.
that kind
Uh,
of helps because you're supposed
right.
to forget it. Yeah.
So now I'm seeing them like I'm writing them on myself, even though they're written here, encapsulated in time, in a place, and an emotion. They're like haunted artifacts on me, but I'm seeing that they're morphing now, and I'm being able to reuse them in sort of a way, and kind of charge those as I'm working on, all this whole nostalgiamancy idea and everything. So that's been really fascinating, um, as far as like the kind of bare knuckle sigilization or sigilism, you know, of
Yeah.
it.
Um, I was wanting to talk about. I mean, I've recently bought myself a guitar.
Yeah.
It's one of the best purchases I ever bought. It's better than a magic wand because it
Yes.
makes sound.
Yes.
Uh, Magic and music. One interesting thing that I found when I was playing guitar, because I've been a jack of all trades, but
Mhm.
a painting or a drawing, it does take time to do it, but when you see it, you get it all in one go.
Right.
But music moves through time.
It does. It's a ghost. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
and it permeates differently too, because what I've been doing in the Haunt Manual, the music underneath is an improvised live audiomancy set, and it's wholly unedited. What you hear um, as the soundtrack to the audio cast version of it is literally me hitting record on the live stream and just playing, and working through some perimeters, and some of the perimeters where I would use like one tuning that I used to use, and I would it would inherently like build synapses, and I would cycle through old riffs that I had long forgotten
yeah,
and bringing them new. So that's a huge part of it, and working with audiomancy in that sense, in the sense of putting it with Haunt Manual and having every single episode be a new underlying, soundtrack that is a talismanic ritual, for that specific chapter is, has been extremely uh it's self-influential, right? It's
mm,
it's very odd because with these parameters I've set, or working in threes, so it would be maybe drum machine, guitar, and effects, or it would be vintage drum machine, guitar and effects, or you know what I'm saying? Like working in threes and working in these limitations, and then giving myself a key that this entire 30-minute audiomatic session would either be in a certain key, or it would be charging basically an old hyper sigil album. So I would go through kind of, from what I remember, are the riffs kind of fluidly of songs on a certain record that I've made from far in the past,
Mhm.
and finding like I'm kind of traveling back to that time of even my physicality of playing, or um finding long forgotten riffs that you make and then you forget and they're gone forever, kind of a thing, and
Yeah.
they're kind of coming back and being a part of it, so it is kind of dancing with ghosts in a way.
Yeah,
And yeah.
absolutely. That's a beautiful description. It harks. I know you're not weren't a fan of nostalgia, but it's remembering your fabled past. I don't even think
Yes.
it's the real past. It's kind of what we remember is not what happened. It's like we kind of build legends around our memories.
Yeah, it's a ghost of a memory. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like this echoed reverberation of what actually happened, right?
yeah. And it's
Um Yeah, and and when it comes to nostalgia, I think my grump really came from the cultural kind of prison I'm finding across a lot of media, and this like generation of regurgitation. Just everything is a reboot or a remake, or
yeah,
really trying to get at us through these psychic nostalgia strings, right?
yeah,
And that's kind of, I think a lot of it had to do with my grump with just the word and how much it is charged in the popular conscious and then in the zeitgeist. So getting over that, right? And starting to understand like how very specific and um purposeful it can be used for the self, and not really considering the ramifications of it culturally, has like helped me push through with that, and it's helped me be more sentimental, working in these audiomancy sessions where I'm churning and burning through memories and ideas long forgotten, just because of the parameters I set up that help me get back to that place, has been really revealing and sweet and bittersweet, right?
yeah.
Um,
Bittersweet.
yeah.
Yeah. So, anarchic magic is tends to be what you call your magic.
Yeah. I think that's just I, that's a term think popularized by Mitch Horowitz, and it's just one that I think kind of it's just the quickest delivery of I'm not in a certain current. I don't subscribe to a certain idea. Like this is it's not even chaos magic, although some would argue it is, depending on what your view of chaos magic is.
Yeah.
But I think all of those labels are very specific and certain these days about a type of current. So I just say that as shorthand to say like this it's anarchy. Like it's
Well, yeah,
yeah.
it's not traditional magic. It's not
Mhm.
chaos magic. It's not
Right.
grimoire magic. It's creative magic, really.
Right. I mean, I would call it, if I had to name the magic. There was a magic I was I'm still working on, and it's part of the Down the Road with Haunt manual that I released on We the Hollowed, and Prag Magic was divergent magic, and it was
Oh yeah, divergent.
mental health, like the confluence between mental health and magic, and practices that I use to commune with my brain chemistry, as if the brain chemistry was the other, right? Because it's to me it's not it's all about communion, because it's something that I have very little power over,
Mhm.
unfortunately, because of my mental disfluencies. So trying to find that communion, I called it divergent magic. So with this, I'm toying with, I mean, nostalgia mancy, just it's like too on the nose. I mean, it's obvious, but I think it's wrapped up in the idea of nostalgia. So I was joking with my buddy Eric Millar, who's the illustrator
Yeah,
for We the Hollowed.
fantastic artist and
Yeah.
all round nice guy.
Yeah, and he did the art for that first haunt manual chapter, of course. And I was joking, what about hauntomancy? you know, it's kitschy and portmanteau, goofy enough that I like it, but I think it's always trying to find uh a personal label for it, but of course it's going to share a lot of similarities, you know, with other things and all
Yeah.
that. So,
So communing with yourself is one thing, but a
mhm,
major strand, well, perhaps the most important part of magic is communing with spirits or
mhm.
forces, natural forces. Do you do that?
Yeah. I still have a daily praxis that takes myself out of the equation, that I give tithings and offerings to, um, to deities outside of my creation. So I do both, um, but that's honestly that's kind of the traditional faith-based kind of system of which I
Yeah,
still utilize for routinization, um, really. And I think it's a great process to take yourself out of the equation, as well, because I can get very much in the weeds about, the subjective reality. So it's just
yeah,
trying to find kind of balance in that. And I still work with, Santa Muerte. I still, there's a lot of things I still kind of work with that are from my past, and it's more of like another kind of basically tithing to, um, the past, right? So yeah.
yeah. So what's in the future for you, Keats?
Um, there's a lot of things. I've got kind of in the direct future is keeping putting out this, as the chapters are made, hopefully monthly, the audio and written chapters on my Substack, which is free, by the way. And working on another album behind the scenes, doing all of these audiomancy streams. Funny enough, I did one a couple days ago, and the mix wasn't good enough for me, so I went and unlisted it and gave it to Patreon. But so I'm still wrestling with how to kind of mix. That first one was, it just worked so perfectly. But I think it's funny to do these live improvised but parameter kind of set audiomancy, um, performances or rituals, and know when, like, it doesn't commune with what this next chapter is on well enough, and being okay to just let it go and do it again, or you know what I mean. It's very much the magical praxis in that sense of, I didn't the it's not all about results, but even the process wasn't.
Yeah,
I didn't feel I didn't feel outside myself enough, and I was too analytical.
yeah,
And to me, that's when it dips out of kind of the metaphysical
yeah,
realm.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Even, I mean, I've only had this guitar for like 4 months, but when I'm playing, I do feel like when I'm, when it's going nice, it does feel like you're outside, kind of watching in. And I had the same experience when I was a singer in a band. We weren't great musicians, but sometimes in the practice room there'd be this energy,
Mhm.
and the music plays itself. And when we listen back to it, we're like, "Fucking hell! Did we do
That
that?"
See, and that's what I think is, just a sidebar a little bit about, kind of my practice of audiomancy. That's the thing that is so important with me. I know there's a lot of people that use audiomancy in separate ways, and it's very digital based, or it's very, um, kind of algorithmic. And to me, it misses the kind of true metaphysical element if you're not finding that runner's high of, like, communion with physical or physicality, right? Singing, playing, drumming, anything, and working with all of the tools, right? So that's always really important to me, is that those polarities of, you know, creating but also being active with the creation. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So this intentional community
Oh
you're
yeah.
planning, tell us a bit
Well,
about that.
it's an intentional homestead. In the far reaches, I'm hoping that it also acts as some sort of community or haven in northern New Mexico with my dear friend and brother, Logan Ford. And there's 60 or so acres of land, and it's bare land. We're gonna have to drill for wells. There's a lot of building. This is, in the process, but the land is acquired. It's all about kind of nest egging for building materials and planning and building on top. But the hard part is over. The documents are signed. The land is ours. Um, and it's just about figuring out what to do with it. But yeah, my intention in the long run is to kind of create uh, a physical artistic space for We the Hollow to go back to this somatic reality as much as it's been on this like digital, international ether, because it started as a um, monthly salon that we did as a residency. And that's where Pragmagic came from, because I'd interview people in front of an audience and we'd all play music, or there would be, you know, um, poetry or live painting, all of that. And I'm really, really missing that. I just don't think that I want to go through the system of cities or like the vernacular of, uh, you know, bars and pubs and all that. And the dream would be to kind of create a space to foster that. So that's in the plan. That's what's happening congruently with everything. So yeah,
Well, I hope one day I will have the passport and the money to visit.
you will. You will. We'll get you out no matter what. But yeah, I still got to get my passport renewed. It's a bitch.
Yeah, I haven't had a passport since I was like 15 or something. I went on a school trip with Copenhagen. I'm not very
Nice.
well traveled. I
Yeah.
actually burst into flames if I go too far past the boundaries of Aberdeen,
Yeah.
Scotland.
It's that vampire blood.
Bad
It'll
things
get you.
happen. Bad things happen.
We'll get you out, but I'm still very happy with all of us, yourself especially, and what We the Hallowed has become, and all the exciting things you're doing. I love that you're back at it and you're putting out music, and I
Mm,
hope that we
well, some might call it. Well, I
uh
call it music. I'm not sure
yeah.
if anyone agrees.
Well, I call it music, with a K for sure.
Ah,
But
yes, yes. Yes.
uh so yeah, I we'll put out that kind of maxi single or whatever on Bandcamp for the stuff that
Yeah.
we did for the Honquinox. And I'm so excited about the shows that you've been putting out recently. I
Well,
will It'll all be logged on We the Hollowed, and hopefully we can get you an audio version of all this stuff out
yeah, like
soon.
I say, well, Temple of Babylon, Choronzon, I also dedicate my work to them.
Mhm.
You guys really need to talk, by the way. I mean, you are. I think
Yeah.
there's some conversation going
Yeah,
on.
anytime I've talked or I've heard Bobby on your show, I've dug it. I think
Yeah,
those
yeah,
cats are rad. So
yeah, they certainly are. So, yeah, all my art and stuff, I would like to go through We the Hallowed, but
yeah,
I
it's
can't
all there
even.
for you, and it's yours. Even
Thank you
it's
very
just
much, Keats.
the We the Holiday is just a vehicle. It's just like a springboard, really.
It's cool
Um,
though. I like these little groups. It reminds me of Genesis Peorage and his
mhm.
Temple of Psychic Youth and all that. You
Not
know,
gonna lie, when it was created in like 2014, 2015, I was nose deep in the psychic Bible, so
yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense.
I tried to buy a copy of that recently, and the prices are horrendous.
Oh, I know, it makes me feel bad for how I treat my books, you
Have
know?
you got a copy?
Yeah, I can
Uh,
send you it.
well,
Um, yeah. It's
What's that?
probably going to cost the same in shipping, but who knows?
No, I couldn't ask that.
But yeah, it's there. I write all over everything. I just, this incessant need to customize everything kind of ruins everything too. So
Yeah, you are a bit of a customizer. It's just the creative soul in you. You need to put your mark on things.
yeah, I feel like, feel so temporary. It's like all anchors,
Yeah, well,
all
everything
these.
is so temporary. I mean, we're all going to be
Yeah,
dead soon.
I mean, and that's a lot of the, theme of Haunt Manual. It's kind of giving reverence to this ghost, this temporary, echo of memory or of self or,
Yeah,
you know,
I think
what
I
will
think
be.
that's a motivation for a lot of art is to leave something behind. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm never going to have children now, uh, so my
You
art.
don't know. Yeah.
Well,
Still
take a
time.
yeah. If any 25 to 35-year-olds would like to volunteer for the job, put it in the comments. But
Mhm.
yeah, so you
Must
know,
be witchy.
oh God, must be witchy,
Mhm.
absolutely, and must have high tolerance levels for
Yeah.
disgraceful behavior now and then.
Oh, I feel that one. Yeah.
Hmm. So, Keats, I think we've probably exhausted our subjects. Is there anything you want to put in as a little poochie poochie at the end?
Um, no, I think I like it short and sweet and, it's already so deep on a lot of levels that, kind of keep keep digging what I think exhaust the
Yeah,
ideas. So I
absolutely.
appreciate you asking me to be here and thank you for all of
It's
your
long
support.
overdue, Keats, man.
Yeah, and I really, and thank you for your friendship. You've just been
Oh,
such an amazing human in my life, so I appreciate you.
same here, buddy. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll end it there. I will try and post links and all that stuff in the video below. But for now, thank you very much, Keats Ross, Drag Magic, We the Hallowed. Cheers,
Yeah.
buddy.
Haunt
Great
on.
interview.